Hello friend. I want to tell you about the Fiat Panda car. The Fiat Panda is one of the last European cars that won the hearts of customers not only with its affordable price, but also with its practical features. Can it win the hearts of people looking for a car on the secondary market after all these years? The new dashboard design at the time could be light, and the Panda II surprised with its decent workmanship compared to other small cars. For almost 10 years of production, the car was released from the factory in a huge number of special versions, which differed in the colors of the upholstery, the general appearance of the interior, but also the body. What will definitely bother passengers with longer legs is the central part of the dashboard, where the gear stick and all the controls are conveniently placed. The driver and front passenger will feel the size of this part of the cockpit with their knees. In the back, however, there is a bit too little legroom, but the height of the interior is a positive surprise. From a technical point of view, the new Panda was not much more modern than its predecessor, because the simplest solutions of its time were used. The front suspension was of course McPherson struts, the rear was a simple torsion beam. Even in the four-wheel drive version, including the Panda 4x4 and Panda Cross with rear differential lock, a similar solution was used, because such a variant was already foreseen at the design stage of this car, so the rear axle design was selected. There was even a sports version called 100 HP from the power of 100 HP. It was equipped not only with a more powerful 1.416V engine, but also with a 6-speed gearbox and stiffened suspension. It also had a styling package that distinguished it from other Pandas. Even today it looks surprisingly nice and is a version that will not lose its value. I deliberately used the term European car at the very beginning of the video, because the Fiat Panda II was a car produced exclusively in the Tichy car factory, and the diesel engine was also made in our country. Engines. Small engines found their way under the hood of the Panda II. The largest and most powerful is the 1.4100 HP powering the aforementioned 100 HP version. It is not a very popular version, but finding it on the market will not be difficult. The most popular Pandas, however, are equipped with weak petrol engines. The older, 8-valve 1.1 petrol with 54 hydrogen phosphide. The same as in the Seicento, or the newer, also 8-valve, but larger 1.260 and, towards the end of production, 69 HP. The range was complemented by the 1.3 multi-jet diesel or, if you prefer, JTD with 70 or 75 hydrogen phosphide, with DPF. The car was also offered in a natural gas version, but no one is particularly interested in that. In this video, we will deal with weaker petrol and diesel versions. Which engine to choose? In general, petrol engines can be put into one drawer. Despite small differences in capacity and power, from an operational point of view they do not differ significantly. The smaller 1.1 reaches 54 HP and 88 Nm of torque, while the older 1.2 60 HP and 102 Nm. It is not difficult to guess that the larger engine will be slightly more dynamic, especially in the low and medium rev range. Even better, but still sluggish, is the latest 1.2 with 69 HP and 102 Nm. Not only are these units weak, but their driving economy is average at best. There are people who have a hard time getting below 7L, 100 km with fuel consumption, and in typical city driving it even reaches over 8L, 100 km. On the road, of course, it is much better. However, the advantage of petrol engines is their reliability. What breaks down in petrol Pandas is not so much the engine, but its accessories. The alternator, it cracks from moisture and water, or the fuel pump are often damaged, and uneven engine operation is the fault of a dirty stepper motor. Such failures are trivial and, in fact, the subject should end there. Of course, there is no shortage of battered Pandas with gas installations. There are opinions that these engines are not suitable for driving on LPG, that the cylinder head cracks, but this is not true. As for the 1.3 JTD diesel, actual capacity is 1.2 liters. You can have mixed feelings. This is a very successful and durable engine. It can easily do 300,000 kilometers, and most of the more serious problems result from neglect. The oil level should be checked regularly, especially in units with a DPF filter. This engine can also use up some oil. Low oil level affects the work of the timing drive tensioner. The typical problems with this unit include a faulty EGR valve, which is basically the only, more frequent failure. A big advantage of this small diesel in the Panda is the lack of a dual-mass flywheel, which could significantly increase operating costs. Unfortunately, you have to be gentle with the clutch, which can wear out very quickly. The timing chain can stretch during city driving, so it's worth checking it regularly. You also have to be careful with the rather delicate turbocharger. It's best to change the oil every 10 to 15,000 kilometers. Potential expenses for maintaining the diesel engine of the small Panda may therefore be relatively high, especially considering the price of the car. However, the compensation is very low fuel consumption. Even in the city you can fit in 6L, 100 kilometers, and on the highway the Panda can go below 5L, 100 kilometers. Although with a calm drive on national roads it can record results even below 4L, 100 km. Dynamics is another matter. Even the weaker version has 70 HP, more than the petrol 1.1 and 1.2, and the torque reaches 145 Nm. The more powerful, 75 HP version with a DPF filter generates the same torque, because it differs only in the characteristics of its course at higher revs. With such parameters, the Panda is more likely to gather at low and medium revs, and this is how this car is driven. The disadvantage of diesel is a slightly longer warm-up of the engine, which anyway reaches operating temperature faster than larger diesel units. So which engine should you choose? There is no clear answer here. If the Panda is to be used for longer distances on the road, at least 10 to 15 kilometers of continuous driving, it is worth considering buying a diesel version, because it can pay off. In other cases, there is no point in focusing on diesel, because petrol engines are problem-free. Therefore, choosing an engine is not about choosing a better unit, but rather one that is more suitable for the way it is used. I also advise you to focus on the youngest cars with the lowest mileage when searching for a diesel. What's broken? The Fiat Panda is not a particularly unreliable car, but it is not without its minor flaws. There are quite a few of them, which translates into the overall failure rate, but it is not a car for which you need to call a tow truck. As I mentioned at the beginning, it is mainly the equipment that breaks down, both in petrol and diesel engines. The worst in this respect are cars from the beginning of production, which had several shortcomings. All systems require greater care after years. The brake system, the pump area and lines, can leak, and the steering gear often requires regeneration after 100,000 kilometers. Versions 1.1 were devoid of power steering, which eliminates one of the areas that may require a financial contribution. Malfunctions of elements responsible for opening and closing the car are the norm. If not the central locking, the handle itself will refuse to obey. Wiper mechanisms also break down. Very cheap to service suspension is not resistant to European conditions. Fiat did not think to reduce the cost of repairs by using a replaceable wishbone pin, but the wishbone itself is not expensive either. The bodywork protection against corrosion of the Fiat Panda II is very good, although in early production models rust may appear on the tailgate. The exhaust system corrodes. Operating costs, prices and availability of spare parts. Despite numerous minor faults, all of them can be repaired cheaply, so overall the car is one of the cheapest cars of this age to operate. Virtually every part can be obtained in stores and wholesalers with replacements, and less typical elements can also be obtained in scrapyards. Visiting an authorized service center can be just a mannerism of the user, because it is not necessary to do so. Cars are not stolen much, and insurance prices are very low. The depreciation is also small, because the car has seen its best days long ago. The smallest depreciation can be expected by owners of cars with air conditioning and electrics. The car is incredibly cheap to maintain and, contrary to appearances, rarely breaks down so much that it has a problem driving away. Service is not only cheap, but also easy to do yourself. Of course, the sure thing is the Panda with petrol engines, but choosing a diesel is also a good decision. You just have to watch out for cars with DPF. The first one may not be a true sports car, but it drives well, looks much better than the regular Panda, and has an engine under the hood that is the only one in the range that gives really good performance. The same cannot be said about the four-wheel drive version, but this one, on the other hand, may surprise many owners of a real off-road vehicle with its off-road capabilities. Thank you for listening to me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and rate my video. If you know of any problems with this car that I haven't mentioned, be sure to write about them in the comments.
I have good news for you. Now, if you are planning to buy a used car, or learn more about your car, you no longer need to search for the information you need on the internet. We have collected everything in one place for you, on the website carme.pro. Here you can find out everything about the car, what brakes and at what mileage, any problems with engines, chassis or gearboxes, which trim levels are better not to mess with, and how not to lose money buying a used car. You will learn all this on carme.pro.